Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Depending on the time you're watching us. It's 11 a.m. Nigerian time, West African time. Good morning, everybody. You're welcome to this special fireside conversation hosted by SieDi-Hub, and my name is Chisom Udoba. So yes, so this is a special fireside conversation hosted by SieDi-Hub. We are new, but we are bubbling. Like we have so much already. We have so much in line already for young people, for women, for children, uh, from different, majorly Nigeria, but now from the southeast, focusing on Abia State first. So this is one of our projects that would help us, learn and also plan more and understand uh, our our target audience better. This fireside conversation was preceded with our official launch. The official launch we had it on the 16th of June. Then after that, we have been having a series of trainings for our team against our project implementation and all. This fireside conversation is also one way they're going to learn and prepare for the main work we have on ground. And today we have a special guest that's going to be speaking to us. He's a renowned SDG advocate. He's been a major player in this field for a very long time. And we're excited to listen to him, to learn from him, to get to know him, and we can't wait to bring him here. But before we go in, would like if you're joining me live, you could just say hello. Let me know you can hear me. Let me be sure I'm clear enough. Just leave hello in the comments, or just say I can hear you. Okay, so I'm sure. Also, if you're here, you can invite your friends that are in Abia State, that are in Umar here, that are in different parts of the world. They can join us live. We are streaming on Facebook, on YouTube, and on oh, thank you so much, Miss Pretty Nelly. Thank you. It's nice to know that you're joining us and you can hear me. Yes, so we're streaming on different social media platforms. So be sure to share the link. Hello, Mr. Ejem. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much. Please share the link with your friends and everyone that will be part of this. Hello, gracious Grace Michael. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much. Yes, so we're going to be going straight in, but please invite your friends, invite everyone that should be part of this. Thank you so much, gracious. Yes. So I'm going to be bringing in our guest, and he is a leading SDG advocate that has been doing this work for a very long time. And the very interesting thing is that this is a man that is working in for women, that's trying to, promote things that relate to women, sexual based, gender based violence, and trying to curb it and trying to, promote the welfare of women, of children, of young people in Nigeria, in Abia State, and different parts of the world. And I'm so excited about this. His name is Raymond Chima Ukwa, and he's going to be here. He's going to join us shortly. Hello, Mr. Raymond. You're live.
Hello, Chisom, good
Thank you so much
morning.
for joining this conversation. Good morning. Good
Thank
morning.
you
Thank you
for
so much
having
for joining
me.
this conversation. Yes.
Yes, it's good
So
to be here.
I'm sure I didn't really. Yes, it is. It is. Thank you so much for honoring this invite. I'm sure I didn't do an amazing job with the introduction because your portfolio is so huge. So would want you to just introduce yourself, tell us what we should know about you as regards your work in this field and so much more.
My name is Chima Raymond Ukwa, and I work as a sustainable development advocate, and
Okay.
I also work on issues around women and girls, eliminating harmful traditional practices, gender-based violence, promoting
Uh, Mr. Raymond, can you hear me?
For women in
Okay.
entrepreneurship, and of course, holistically,
Okay. So, all right. So I'm sure he's going to be back very shortly. This should be a little network glitch. Uh, yes. Okay. Welcome back, Mr. Raymond.
thank you. I noticed network went off.
Yes. Yes. So you can just continue.
Holistically, I walk around ensuring that women and girls and young people have access to opportunities, and of course that are
Mm,
beneficial to them, and also beneficial to the economy of the country they live in. And I think basically that defines me. I'm quite enthusiastic about young people and about women and girls.
mm. That's really really beautiful, and it's quite interesting that most times when people talk about women, girls, they feel, oh, it has to be women doing everything. Women have to be the voice and the face and everything. But you're a young man and you're a big player in this field. How has it been so far, being in this field and working towards the advancement of women and girls?
Again, I think basically sometimes we misinterpret the function of women in the society.
Mm,
And of course, I don't think I should be celebrated as a young
mm,
man who is championing the issues of women and girls because we need to begin to look at the issues of women and girls as a humanity issue because they are humans too. They
yeah.
are not aliens. They are not different. I mean, they could have some sort of different biological composition, but ultimately they are human too. So this is me championing a humanity cause, right? And
Mm,
let's begin to look at it that way. Then how has it been? Of course, I can't, ultimately say I'm a woman that I understand what women
okay.
face because, of course, you need to be in the shoe of someone to understand how it pains. And so, most importantly, what I critically understand is that women are underrepresented and opportunities and access to information and services and entrepreneurship is always not available to them. And even if it's available to them, there's no um, um, uh, what do I call it? There's no balance in access to those opportunities, right?
Mm,
Yeah, globally we've been shouting gender equality, but I feel that it is most important for us to look at equity. Equity is about giving people access to equal opportunities, but again, based on their very fundamental differences. So, for instance, um, women, of course, will have to go through 9 months of pregnancy, breastfeeding, and all that. When you talk about equality, you eventually just talk about giving them the same time you're giving to a man. But I don't feel that's fair. I feel that if a woman has to go through the childbearing process and through the pains of raising or nursing a
mm,
child and all that, the clause of equity is that they should also can contribute the same amount of work time, but of course they should also have the leverage of what they have to do as biological child bearers as well. So these are, where I am working at. Then it is quite challenging, of course, when there are lots of cultural backlashes, that are enforced. For instance, in Africa, uh, there's been a misinterpretation of culture for us to think that women don't matter. And of course, they shouldn't have
mm,
access to land because somebody buys them off during marriage. That's misinterpretation of that. So it begins to limit the opportunities they have. So every other woman who wants to grow up doesn't want to own anything because they want to um, they don't want to what do you call it they don't want to be seen or eventually they just know that of course their life depends on a man, and so when they are married off, it ends there. So I feel that they should be able to, you know thrive in whatever space they think is necessary. And whether they are married or not, they should be able to own property. They should be able to, pursue their lives and all that. So yeah, there are cultural backlashes that underpin the development of women and girls.
Mm. Beautiful. This is quite enlightening. I'm glad that you made mention of equity, because most times the focus is actually on equality, and equity brings more balance, because we are different and we have different strengths, and it's beautiful to always play on your strengths. So in all of this, has there been any should I say results? Have you been able to do you have major successes so far? Because I know how cultural and maybe religious doctrines too can maybe affect some of these things. But has there been any major success or wins?
Oh well, at the moment, I work as the response lead for gender-based violence in Abia State, and
Okay.
again the programs manager for Ukwa Foundation, and that is owned at the moment by the wife of the governor of Abia State. And I wouldn't want to talk about the successes without ultimately also mentioning the impact of the political will of the system. So, of course,
Mm,
because sometimes when you do interventions and they are not that they don't have some sort of political backing, sometimes it's almost not very fruitful because, of course, people trust in the government and
mm,
don't believe that whatever the government brings to fore is what is good for them. So in the last few years, there's been a tremendous, effort, driven and backed by the wife of governor, and of course under my leadership to ensure that women and girls, of course, have access to opportunities, and of course, again, when they have issues of gender-based violence, and of course, they have access to um, protection services, legal services, and of course, law enforcement services, of course, psychosocial services as well. So, from the time I came into the office, I feel that we've recorded quite some very strong marks. Um, One is that at the moment, Abia, where I serve at the moment, is one of the. I was just reading a report just before I came on this call. Abia is third on the implementation and response to gender-based violence in the country, following Ikiti and Kwara State. And so that shows that we are ahead, in the conversations that we are doing, and we've been able to set up a response structure for Abia State, which is of course a starting stage, and I think it's a movement, at the moment that we are having these conversations and we are having these initiatives, backed by the government. One is that again, we have also we have the protocol for Abia State on gender-based violence. We've also trained
mm.
stakeholders, um, on gender-based violence response. We've also engaged multi-sectoral initiatives and stakeholders and partners to ensure that gender-based violence in Abia State is all encompassing. And so
Wow.
that's a movement moving forward. In fact, at the moment, in fact, as of 2 weeks ago, we just concluded the uh, um, validation of Abia State gender policy. So that's a
Mm,
movement. There's also,
that's
the
beautiful.
child rights law in Abia State being reviewed at the
Oh,
moment, and I
wow.
think that's also movement. So with all these structures in place, it gives a
Mm,
basic foundation, to the possibilities of what women and girls can achieve moving forward with all these structures and policies and laws backing them. Of course, there's also the violence against person prohibition law, of Abia State being domesticated in 2019 and signed in 2020 by the governor. So all these are the
mm,
initiatives being pushed from the center and from the foundation that I work from at the moment. And I feel these are giant strides because When people are beginning to have conversations about Abia and about women, now that,
mm,
in fact, it's even people begin to warn you, don't touch this person, don't beat your wife, because the government, they're not laughing about this issue. So it's something that people are willing to have conversations about. And before now, it wasn't so. So beyond the gender-based violence frontline and response, again, um, women have been empowered from the office. There's been lots of skill acquisition programs. In fact, we launched what we call the Women and Lucent Women, where we bring opportunities and people who have succeeded in fields to come mentor the younger people who want to also grow in these opportunities. So we're
okay.
also doing that in encompassing nature.
Mm. This is really beautiful because I was in Abia State for the official launch of SieDi-Hub, and it was quite obvious that there's so much work going into should I say gender issues and all, because even from from the conversations I had to, and the people I met too, it was really really obvious. What do you think that other states can do to also come up to this level? Because we want it to be like everywhere, even though the focus for now it's Abia State, or at least from the eastern states, because there's so much noise talk about about violence against women. There was news about a woman that lost her husband that was paraded around, I think, in his town in Anambra State. There are different stories coming up every day, and we want to know, what do you think other states can do to be able to you know come up to the level that Abia State has gotten to?
Okay, yeah. So I think on the initials, I mentioned that women and girls issues should be a humanity issue, and of course, we
Mm,
also have to work around eliminating the cultures that underpin the success of women. So this is very fundamental and important, and it's the government's responsibility to ensure that that all this protection
okay. I think there's a little network issue in Nigeria, and you know how it can be. But I'm sure he's going to be joining
That's
us
one.
shortly.
And two,
Okay. Okay. Okay, as we wait for him to resolve this, if you have questions for him, please feel free to drop them in the comment section. If you have questions, please drop them in the comment section. If you have thoughts, you're learning something, you can share that point you're learning in the comments too, and we would love to read from you too. So feel free to share points you're picking, and questions and anything you want to share in the comments, and also invite your friends if you're in Abia State, wherever you're watching from. I saw Uka Oji Olama saying she's watching from Lagos. Please share with your friends, invite them to join this, and also leave your questions in the comments too. Okay. I've been learning so much. I'm sure if you've been watching too, you'll be learning a lot too, and would love to hear from you. Let's know the points you're learning. Drop them in the comments. Let's know if you have questions. Please leave them in the comment section too, and would love to read from you. It's been an intense one. It's been a really eye-opening conversation, and I'm glad we have Mr. Chima here to lead us through all of this. I'm sure he's going to be joining us shortly, and we'll be talking more about Abia State, and generally about Nigeria, and how we at SieDi-Hub too can learn and also be able to implement some of this even as we start our project implementation stage. And if you're not on our social media, please join us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere. We're on all platforms. Okay. So join us there, follow us, leave comments, like our page, and share with your friends too, because we have so much in stock for you, and you would only be able to know about them if you are on our social media platforms. Okay. And there's so much in stock for you. So we're still going to have our guests to be joining us shortly, and we would continue. Okay, you're welcome back, sir.
Sorry, Nigeria is not yet ready for the advancement of. So sorry, my network. I guess.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Wait, welcome back.
yeah. So I think I mentioned that government backing is one, and two, the institutions also must. I mean, when I mean institutions, for example, the case you mentioned in Anambra State. So there are harmful traditional practices that are, of course, widowhood practices, that are there, and
Mm,
um, I think in the march of history, um, traditions and cultures are what they are things that identifies us and makes us unique.
mm,
And for us to grow, some cultures keeps us grounded, but the cultures that undermine the dignity of people, of anyone, is not a good culture, and we
mm,
must end it. So engaging traditional institutions, because of course the traditional institutions are the custodians of this culture, and when we need to review our cultural systems, for instance, there are places that widowhood practices are enormous. For example, you have to beat the water from your husband's cups. You have to, but then when the system is reversed, a man is not going to beat the to beat the what do you call it, the water from the wife's cups. A woman will have to mourn the husband for 1 year, wear white clothes and tie black hair tie for 1 year to show that you're mourning for a year. A man doesn't necessarily need to do that. He can wear any color of clothes, any style of clothes, and all that. So we must begin to review most of these cultural practices. Are they really necessarily, helping us grow, or are they undermining the power of our dignity? So these are the things we have to critically look at. And when we examine our cultures and then we see that most of these cultures are, undermining our dignity and not even necessary, then we must begin to have conversations to end them. And I think that is, part of the things we are doing. One, there are laws, and of course, the other thing is the conversations with the traditional institutions. So there's a law called obnoxious widowhood practices, which of course the Abia state government at the moment is also trying to develop and ensure that before the end of this administration that law is passed, is to protect the widows. How I should a family come and take out the property of their brother who died, leaving the woman and her children, to distress? That doesn't make sense to me. If this woman had contributed because in the real sense of it, when all these things happen, the woman must have been part of the building process for the man. In fact, most times the woman contributes over 60% to the purchase of a land or to the building of an infrastructure. And then at the end of the day, when the man dies, the husband people ultimately just believe it is the man that acquired everything and begins to drag property with the woman, clears the man's account. So how do you want the offspring of your brother? How do you want them to survive? How do you want the woman to be able to take care of these children? So these are very, very fundamental, irrational and behaviors of culture that I don't know how it started, but I feel it doesn't make sense at the moment. Women should have access to land. They should have access to, farmlands. They should have access to institutional engagements and all that. So these are what I feel that other states should be able to also look at critically. They should begin to examine what keeps them grounded. If the cultures
yeah.
are good, they keep it. If the culture is not good at the moment, because we are living in an ever-evolving world, just like the other conversation of a woman cannot become a commissioner because she was married into the state. That
Into
kind of
understates. Yeah.
internal message. You cannot become a commissioner. At what point did we get there? Can we value people because at the level that of engagement that they are? If they are bringing value to the table, let's harness
Mm,
the value. Just like telling me that
yeah.
Ngozi Konjiwala should not be
Work.
at the World Trade Organization,
Yeah.
because she's a Nigerian that was married into somewhere else. Because of course, when this same woman you're saying that shouldn't be a commissioner goes back to where maybe she was married from, they will tell her, they've already married you now. So why are you coming back here to begin to canvass for politics? So she doesn't have a right where she was married to, she doesn't have a right where she was married from, and so she's just one person who is floating. That's not fair. That's not
Yeah.
fair. That doesn't make sense. And so we must begin to have these conversations at all levels and begin to change this narrative at all levels. Men, eventually are not the ultimate decision makers. Because if we believe, I usually like to use this analogy. If we Christians believe, Eve went to listen to a snake and ate apple and gave the husband that turned the entire world upside down, we should also give them the opportunity to have the conversation to turn it back. This if we because the entire thing is that the man ultimately, when God asked, what's happened? What Adam, where are you? This is the woman that you gave me. So let's also allow the woman that God gave us, begin to have the conversations
Right.
for change. And I believe that, eventually at all levels, that they have the power to have the right conversations. And when they
Mm.
put that initiative to fore, I believe that, they are eventually going to begin to change some narratives and, of course, the
Yeah.
economic issues we're even having in the country. So let's allow them contribute at all levels, at the state level, at all. These are the things that I feel that other states should have. The women's conversation should be a conversation and a critical conversation as well. It shouldn't be relegated to. In fact, I even find it more, problematic because again, we even have an institution in our political party structures called the women leader. So we don't relegate women into a group and then give them a leader. And of course, the men do not have a man's leader. No, let's all have a playing, playing
Yeah.
field. There's no woman leader,
It
there's no man leader. Everybody is the same in our
is the
political structures
same.
because that this is
Mm.
it's just like what happened. I'm sorry, I'm going to talk about the most of this issue. Just like what happened during the APC. I was so shocked, that it's a single woman who came,
Yeah.
to have a conversation about women participating in politics. Only say, don't you people need a money? No, let's come to the place of having
Right.
the right conversation. We have economic issues. We don't need the
Mm.
money. We need somebody who is willing to have economic conversations and all that.
Yeah.
That is what. So don't relegate, the woman's power into just the issue of motherhood. No, that's not what it is.
Mm.
We have brains. They have brains. And so let's come at the competence of
Exactly.
our engagement on social issues, on political issues, on structural issues. Let's talk about that because Ngozo Konjiwala, like I make reference to her, is not having the conversation of mommyhood in WTO. She's
Right.
engaging.
It's more problem solving.
It's
Sure.
more than a conversation of the future of the
Mm.
global trade systems and the global trade
Mm.
routes and all that. She understands the system. She was in the
Mm.
World Bank, and we saw the amazing things she did. That is what the women
Yeah.
should be looking up to, and we should give them more
Sure.
opportunity to do that. So I'd like to share this eventually again because it was so amazing that but a few weeks ago I was in Russia and I had conversations, with top government officials in Russia, and
Mm.
amazingly, majority of them were women, and not just women. They were young women
Mm.
who understand history and they understand the future. So I
Yeah.
think, eventually, if we have the right conversations for women at
Sure.
all state levels, then we'll begin to see the trunk of a very, very vibrant, initiative women that are
Mm.
going to come to the front.
True, true, because this is really important. I like okay, this is not a political conversation deal, but I like that you made reference to, politics, Nigeria and then general in the world. Because it's not enough to just complain about things, even as people, as young people, as key players in the non governmental space and in different space, we need to now take charge and take action. And you've said so much about what government should do, and and what the key players should do. I want you to talk about, now, as young people, as young women, as youths now, what can we do differently to be able to turn change the narrative to for ourselves as women, as girls, and for the world generally too.
Okay, so I think, there's what we call a social movement. And
mm,
social movement is like what happened during the NSAS, protest in Nigeria.
yeah.
So let me use that as a benchmark to begin to, have conversations about issues. There is a problem. We understand that there is police brutality. So that was the issue. So people were killed unjustly, people were shot at gunpoint, and these were done by the very same people that were sent to ultimately protect them. And so during the NSAS protest, um, there was this um, burst of enthusiasm that came into play. One is that we went through, we went from having tribal lines to one very particular point in time where there was a unity of purpose. The unity of purpose, came to fore because there was a common problem we saw, and then we were seeking for a redress. So that became very important because at the Lekki toll gate, we didn't care who was a celebrity. We didn't care who had 10 million in his account. We didn't care who had 15 million in his account. We didn't care who was Hausa. We didn't care who was Yoruba. We didn't care who was Igbo. We didn't care who couldn't speak English correctly. We didn't care who spoke so well. We didn't care about a lot of things. As far as we raised one voice, that was what was important. Do you buy in this ideology? Yes, we do. So it was more of an ideological conversation, rather was it about politics or or tribe conversation. And so borrowing that movement forward is what I'm also seeing, with this is not a political forum, but again, I think it's worthy to note that, that's what we're also seeing with, the followership of P2B at the moment. There's also
Yeah.
this unified voice that is
Yeah.
coming out to say, yes, we understand there's a problem, and then there's someone who is proposing a solution. And I think we don't want to know whether the person is in PDP or in APC. Because when he moved from PDP to somewhere else, everybody also moved with him to wherever he was going to. In fact, jokingly, people say that even if P2B joins a birthday party, that they'll go and vote the birthday party, and all
Yeah.
that. So now for me, that is a movement. That's a
Yeah.
consensus.
It's about,
So
yeah.
for young people, I think, and for girls and women, I think there needs to be a consensus. When we identify issues, then we throw away tribal lines and begin to address what these issues are.
Yeah.
And I think that is what makes us that's what gives us the leverage to begin to negotiate our future. That ideology of change is what
Mm,
matters, not any other thing, not who is rich, not who is poor. The
mm,
ideology matters. And so for the promotion of inclusion of women and girls into the
yeah.
other spectrum of society is a conversation, is an ideology, and we need to
Mm,
look at it as an ideology. And I know in silently these things are moving forward. There are more conversations about women and girls being included. I'm seeing more women owned businesses thriving. But beyond that, as young people, we need to begin to see these lines drawn. But again, I think I need to note that when we begin to see this ideology, one of in the midst of my work, one of the greatest enemies I've seen to progress are women as well. So, for instance, um, we could be out there negotiating for the women inclusion, and when you now see a woman, okay, show me a woman who can be able to do this, and then you begin to see that they're not even ready or they don't even know what conversations to have. So there's a place of readiness for women and girls to begin to understand because everything concerns you. It is not politics is not a man's business. You know,
yeah.
technology is not a man's business. International trade lines is not a man's business. Economy is not a man's business. The price of petrol and what controls and regulates petrol is not a man's business. Why is
Right. Yeah. True. Uh,
Sorry, it's not a man's business. So we
Okay.
must begin to ensure that everyone is having
Mm.
the conversation, and every woman understands what the conversation is and is driving the solutions. Because the truth about it is now having the basic foundations of life and also contributing and engaging
Oh, network should allow us enjoy
having
this
the basic
conversation. Yeah.
foundations of
Okay. Thank
life.
you. Okay. You can
Sorry.
hear me,
So
right?
having the basic,
Yeah.
yes, I can.
Okay.
So having the basic foundations of life and
Mm.
also contributing and engaging, two things, contributing and engaging. These
Mm.
are quite very, huge words.
Contributing and engaging. Okay. Mr. Chima is making a lot of points, a lot of sense here, and there's like so much to learn. If you have questions, please remember to drop them in the comments, and what you're learning, remember to drop them in the comments. You're welcome back, sir.
So contributing and learning and engaging is one thing, that we must ensure that our women are doing. Contribution, or as I mentioned, comes from the place of understanding what the history is and what the possibilities of the future is as well. So you must understand this. So that is when you understand that you can be able to contribute. And then when you contribute, it's good to also engage with the systems that foster whatever relevant ideas that you have. You must engage. It's not just good enough to relegate yourself as a woman leader and the women's group, because it's very, very appalling to me that when a very prominent, sorry, person is visiting a place, they'll can organize women to tie wrapper, and come and stand on the streets and dance and wave at politicians and all that.
It's like
No,
it's something
they
else.
need to
Yeah.
engage as well. They need to engage. So, what are your problems and how can we begin to solve it?
Mm.
Agriculture is an issue. They need to contribute and engage. Oil is an issue. They need to contribute and engage. So, the young people, women, girls, young people of the feminine gender, is quite very important to note that the trip to Dubai is not the most important. The wearing the most expensive hair is not the very most important. Having iPhone 13, 14 is not the very most important. How many guys are in your DM are not very most important, because these are the things I've watched people have conversations, and this is the most of their achievements. And I'm worried because at the end of the day, you need to contribute and engage. And then when we talk about relegation, that women are not given the opportunity, how many of them are actually ready to contribute and engage?
Mm.
So we must come to that place where you are developing yourself mentally
Yeah.
and also engaging yourself socially. I have seen very fantastic socially driven initiative of women, and
Mm.
you see them
Like
try
this one, right?
because they come from like this one, for instance. So I've seen a lot of them, and we need to have more of these initiatives. If you check the global economy, for instance, you see that women are almost contributing close to 20 to 30 trillion dollars,
Yeah.
women-owned initiatives, and so we must continue to engage with women and then begin
Yeah.
to point them to the right direction. And I like to
Okay.
say this, as an ending note to to this part of the
Okay.
conversation, right? Um, I feel that any politician or anybody who wants to do empowerment in this age that comes with soap making, bead making, what are those other things that they used to do, as an empowerment structure for women.
Okay.
I think that is where the problem is. When you want to think about women empowerment, the only thing you think about is soap making and bead making and hat making and cake making and all that
And
and puff
hair
puff
and
making.
making
And
hair
I
and all of
think
those
that
things.
is where the problem is. because these are not skills. Yes, I
Mm,
understand that they could be. I mean, everybody could literally want to be an event manager, want to learn how to make, sandwiches and puff puff and all that. But
mm.
I feel we are
There's
limiting
so
the
much more.
possibility of that
Yeah.
person. There's just so much more,
Mm,
to a woman. So I feel that
yeah.
in organization designing empowerment for women,
For
and I don't even
women.
feel that there's anything called empowerment eventually. So I just feel that when people are designing frameworks for engagement for women, I feel that it should be very relevant issues, right?
Mm,
It should be relevant issues. Let's teach them developing good business models. Let's teach them how to develop more tech-driven initiatives. Let's teach them
okay.
how to, use, social media for maybe whatever it is. These things are quite very, very important. So, in designing the next frameworks of, engagement with people as empowerment structures, these are the things you should be looking at. The world has moved from bid making. The world has moved from other things. People are mining gold. People are, building businesses. People are, doing tech-driven initiatives. People are in the fintech industries. And this is, where we need to critically go to. So it is important that while we are designing frameworks for women and girls, let's design what is effective for them and engaging that is
Okay.
relevant in this time.
Yes. So there's a question for you, and uh, there's a question. Let me put it up. Yes. So this is a question from our founder. So you've said so much already, like what we can do, but we would like to focus on the part of how can we now close the knowledge gap for women in areas like this.
Okay, so of course, the knowledge gap is enormous, and quite frankly, uh, for you to close the knowledge gap, there has to be an interest, right? So somebody
Mm,
must be interested in studying medicine to be able to study medicine. There needs to be an interest. So we must begin to, design initiatives that could attract women to pick interest in these issues,
yeah.
right? Yes. So if it's very, very important the kind of information we put out there. You know, for example, um, when we begin to, I like the mix. For example, when Guinness is advertising their brand, right? So you see women that are drinking beer. I'm sorry, I'm bringing that up in this conversation. But when you
Yeah, women
see
that are DJs
people,
too,
women are
right?
DJs,
Yeah.
you see that mix. So it begins to draw up an interest for women in that area. You
Mm,
understand? MTN, for instance, does adverts, and then you see, of course, women are also dancers. Women have these big headphones and all that. It used to
mm.
be a man's thing. So, for
True, true.
example,
That's very true.
when Hero is advertising, they just advertise men drinking beer in in a beer parlor. So how can we
Mm,
begin to push information to say, what? I'm not
mm.
saying that women should be drinking beer or whatever. Of course, that's not what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
I'm saying that it
Yeah, we
should be
understand.
an engaging sort of thing. Let people begin
Mm,
to shift perspectives in the kind of
mm.
information and advertisements
That
we
we,
do. So it begins to
yeah.
pique people's interest. You understand? So the reason why Ngozo Konjo-Iweala is our model at the moment is because I feel that she has broken through all the glass ceilings, and then she
Mm.
keeps canvassing and engaging and having
And we're always seeing
conversations.
her, like she's
And we are
always in the
seeing, we
news.
always
We're
seen
always,
her. So
yeah.
for instance, it begins to change narrative for women. So
Mm,
we must begin to design, our approaches to look more human than masculine,
mm.
right? And these are two
True.
things. Let's make it look more human. So it is human to be a DJ and not a
Yeah.
man's job. It's human
Mm,
to, to be what do you call it, a band group, not
mm,
just a woman's thing. I feel excited when I see women playing drums, for instance.
mm.
So it becomes engaging. Can we promote more of these initiatives in
More,
whatever we are
yeah.
doing? So when we're
True.
designing, we're designing campaigns. Let's bring
Mm,
these things to fore. Let's bring it forward.
mm,
Ah, women can be in fintech, and
yeah.
it shouldn't just be toward March. Then everybody now brings women who are there. Let's run it throughout the year. Women are always there, not just
Mm,
doing Women's Day, International Women's Day, and all that. And so like most times we say that Men's Day will come and pass, we won't even know that because men are dominating everywhere. So women is so significant for them. So, but when we make the women engagements a year, like an all year round thing,
all year
women's Day
round.
will come and pass, and won't even know it has come and pass, right? Because women are
Mm,
engaging all the time. So
mm.
these are the things we must begin to
Yeah,
design
that's
an
very true.
interest. Yes, we must begin to design an interest-driven
Mm.
campaigns to these people
And we don't
so they
have to
can
wait
begin
for
to
a
think.
particular day to just have this conversation. We can have it
Yeah,
like all
exactly.
year round. Yeah, this
Yes.
is really interesting. I like what you the scenario with the advertising, because while growing up, when you ask a child, what do you want to be? A child will most likely say, okay, I want to be this because maybe my dad is this, because my mom is this, because I saw on TV this. And this is something that shapes our imagination and shapes the way we think and all, because it's what is at your disposal that's the limit you can be able to like think. It takes
Mm,
so much more for you to think more than what you can see. You see, this is
mm.
this is a very interesting one. And so I would like to ask now, because you've given us so much point and idea. So now, at SieDi-Hub, where we have a lot of plans in place for, Abia, for Umaya, for women, for youth, and for young girls and all. What would be your major advice for us? And as we move into the space to our projects and work, what would you advise us to do, and for us to have more impact and in this field?
So usually whenever I'm having conversations around people moving into new places, I usually want them to understand the contexts of the people around, and then before you
Mm,
begin to design your interventions. So this is quite very important. So when I got into this space, I had to understudy the context of how people thought here. I think we spent, a majority of our time trying to do some sort of reorientation. But I know this is how it is done, but that doesn't mean that that is the right way to do things, right?
mm,
So it begins from understanding their context, where they have been, and of course, where you want them to go to. But in the middle, both of you must meet, right? So understand the interventions other people have done and begin to build on those other interventions, because a lot has gone in. And if you build on what is already existing, but then most importantly, what are you going to do differently? So understand what the challenges have been and what people did and failed. And then again, you can begin to redesign a framework that works for you, right? And then again, it should be very people oriented. What most mistakes NGOs make when they get into a space is that they come in and they want to do their thing, right? No, it doesn't
mm.
work that way. You need to be able to walk people through and do their thing with a touch of yours, right? So,
Okay.
um, for instance, if you want to change people to begin to look at issues around tech, right? You must also understand that people like farming in this area. So you can't just bring
Mm,
tech to them without necessarily
right.
talk about farming. So can we now talk about using tech for agriculture?
Mm,
You've solved the problem. Their interest is agriculture
yeah.
and farming. Your interest in tech is technology. Don't just bring a random tech to them. Bring the tech that works
Right.
with what you can do. So now is what we call the ethno science. So I spoke at an event, and I told them that one of the very basic foundations and problems of development in Africa is that people come and they bring the Western ideologies to us. But again, sometimes you try the Western ideologies, and once the funders go, it goes with them. But what if we begin to design frameworks with the local ideologies? So, for instance, we all went to school, and from nursery school, they started telling us A is for apple. And to be very honest with you, I didn't see apple till I was maybe 8 or thereabouts. So the only apple I saw was what they told me was apple. Apple never
Yeah.
grew here and all that. If they told me A is for apple, I know if I go home, A is for apple and I eat apple when I get
Right.
home. Right? B
True,
is for
there.
ball.
True.
Yes, I've seen ball in the field. C is for
Mm.
cat. It is not readily available. So let's
We could
let's
say
what see
cheer.
what C is
True.
for. So
Mm.
let's begin to teach people with something they can relate with.
They can
Let's begin
relate.
to engage
Okay.
with people with something they can relate with. So with that, you
Mm.
begin to form a very basic foundation for them to begin to introduce
Okay.
what Apple is. So A
Mm.
is for Apple. It can also be for Apple. So when I see Apple, maybe 5 years later or 3 years later, oh, A is for Apple and it's for Apple. Now I know the two. So
Mm.
that is the external ideology from my
Yeah.
local context as well. So
Mm.
these things are what works.
Mm. Mm. Thank you so much. So, we're sure that with every terrain there will be challenges. I think I didn't ask you this earlier. What some of the challenges you faced, like your organization faced while when you started. I think this will also help us to know what would face too. So maybe you could share some of them with us.
Okay, so I think I mentioned that in the midst of my conversations that um, part of the things you're going to face in implementing um, things like this is that I'm sorry to say that people in this part of the world think everything is about money, right? So, and I think that's what most organizations have come to do before. So I used
Mm.
to, I used to work as a community manager for YNCSD, and so we will go to somewhere in the west to go and implement um, a project. And then the people who had come before us used to come and share a bar and share everything to them. And then we that are coming up with the right messaging and all that becomes problematic for us because we don't have the kind of enormous money these people had when they came to come and share a party people or kill cow. So
Mm.
the first entrance or the first entrance into a place, determines the kind of view people have about social movements or NGOs. So
Mm.
so if the first entrance came with money, there's every likelihood that if you're not bringing money to the table, that people are not going to listen to you. So these are
Mm.
some of the things that you're going to face. You really you have to understand, what people were used to or are used to when it comes to interventions, and then begin to reorientate them to ensure that they can begin to buy into your own ideology. And of course, it takes a lot of pressure not to also succumb to the norms because you also face
Mm.
frustrations. People, if you're
Pressure.
not bringing money, even people at the helm of affairs will begin to frustrate you. So part of the
Mm.
things you can do is to find liaisons and liaise with maybe the government or anyone who matters. Drag one person
Mm.
who matters, who has all the contacts into your listing, so that the person can easily be pressing the necessary buttons for you. These are quite very important. So in a chat, there's always both influence on what power can do for you. Who has the influence? Who has the power? So when you draw the charts and then you write all these people down, it's easier for you to begin to use their influence to navigate through your implementation processes.
Mm. Wow, thank you so much. And as we round up, please, if you have questions for Mr. Raymond, please drop them in the comments. If you have questions, if you have thoughts and ideas to share too, please leave them in the comment section, and we're going to take some of them too. Personally, I'd want to know. So, idea for us as a leading organization and as a new organization and new players in this field, especially in Abia and Umar here. Um, how can we? You mentioned something about having a key government person that can make it easier for you. Can you? How can we uh do this? Is there a process? Is there a way to make it easier for us?
Okay, so usually when people when you design your program, um, ultimately there are you begin to do your power portion. So pay advocacy visits to these people. So whatever program you've
Okay.
designed, they are always key players in the field. So
Mm,
go to these people and have conversations with them about what you want and or what you've come to do, and of course,
mm,
how important and relevant their offices are. These things are quite very important. So because you need to be able to give power to somebody to know, so to make sure, I mean, you need to not to give power, actually the person is already powerful, but you need to also
thanks.
appreciate the power somebody
Reverence. Okay.
wields. Yes,
Yeah.
give reference to that power. And so the Igbo adage says, okay, kele dike na nke o mere omekwa ọzọ. So
And
for
also,
instance, when you in loose translation, when you greet DK for the one
mm,
they've done,
when you
the person will
appreciate
do another
them,
one.
they'll want to do
Yeah.
more.
So what I mean is that you need to understand who the person is and what contribution the person has done.
Mm,
Praise those contributions, and then also tell the person that we've also come with this initiative, of course, which you would like, and we want you to be part of it and be our major
mm,
drivers to it. You necessarily don't have to pay money or anything, but these are some conversations you can have moving forward with the person. So the person now
mm.
begins to own, I mean, make them own your campaign as well. And
Okay.
with this, they didn't buy into this ideology. With this, you can navigate through, whatever turbulent times.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Raymond. This has been a very insightful one. Like my notes is full. Like this, I've learned so much, and so much has been brought to fore. Since from the beginning till this time. Thank you so much for your time. I don't know
Thank
if you have
you.
any questions yet. I'm sure you've answered some of them, and we thank you so much for honoring this invitation and for always being here, because we would still need to reach out to you and have you for further conversations and so much more. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for your time. We
Thank you
appreciate
so
you.
much for having me today. Yes, thank you so much.
Yes, we appreciate you. And for everyone that joined us from the beginning of this conversation to this time, I'd like to appreciate you too, from the founder of SieDi-Hub, Chinasa Imo, to the members of the team, to everyone, on the team. We appreciate you so much for being here, and everyone that shared and spoke about this to their friends, to their family. Thank you so much. We are going to have further conversation, because this is a series, this is a fireside chat. It's going to be, we'll have it more in subsequent weeks, and yeah, in subsequent weeks and months too, because there's so much work to do, and this is our way of learning too, and also sharing too. And we'll have other professionals come in to talk to us, to share more. And please, if you don't follow us on social media, please follow us on social media too, because there's so much that we're going to share there, and that this will be one way you're going to be able to learn and also connect with us too. So uh with this, we've come to the end of this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember to follow us on social media. Remember to like our posts and engage. And thank you so much once again. My name is Chisom Udoba, and cheers. Have an amazing day. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.